I don't want to create any kind of wars or anything like that, but I am also an infinite banking practitioner. Now, if you go on YouTube or Google, you'll find, oh, bank yourself and IBC or infinite banking. The differences, or they're the same, but they're not. Now, infinite banking was created by Nelson Nash. So I really wanted to go upstream and go back to the roots, if you will. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go to the IBC think tank. Learned a lot. I would say it was a great event. I recommend people to go to it.
And you can go even if you're not a financial professional. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And it was amazing. A lot of people that, again, care for their clients. And I think that there was just, it was a good room. Now, I'm also banking yourself. This whole concept changed our life. And so I believe in the power of using properly designed whole life insurance that I can leverage and use, whether you call it, whatever you call it, using a properly designed life insurance. Now, again, I said properly designed. That's the difference I think that I see.
Okay, so from my perspective, I'll just share again what you've already said, Brandon. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but there's a long history of using the infinite banking concept for clients out there. And really, the concept itself goes back hundreds of years and mainly forgotten for many years, but still even in the 1900s, the early 1920s, 30s, 40s, many statistics show that the majority of Americans kept the vast majority of their wealth in insurance contracts. That would include life insurance and annuities. Something I think that fell out of favor really in the 60s and the 70s with the passing of ERISA. The ERISA Tax Act of 1974 really instituted things like the 401k and the IRA. So the 401k became more popular in 1981 with Ted Benna discovering it and starting to implement it for his retirement. He was a business consultant, basically, and he would introduce the 401k. And so this has now brought us up to the early 80s, right? Right around that same time, 1980, 1981, what was going on with interest rates? Oh, yeah, they were quintupling, right? Mortgage rates were up at 18%, and folks were freaking out. One of those folks freaking out was a guy named Nelson Nash. Nelson was heavily leveraged, had a lot of variable 90-day adjustable rate mortgage loans on all of his real estate. Hundreds of millions of dollars in today's dollars he was in debt. And all of it was adjustable rate mortgages. And he was, of course, scared to death of he called them the snakes, the bankers that were coming after him. And so he wrote a book detailing this journey and how he escaped the problem of the snakes. And the book is right behind you there in the video. It's Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash. And that really set the record straight for his journey and also what he recommended and what he was doing in terms of workshops and going around from coast to coast doing 2-day-long events teaching the layperson, but also the financial advisor, exactly how to set these policies up and how they could be used. Game-changing, world-changing. Financially speaking, it changed my life and my family tree. But, I would say, and maybe you would disagree or not, I don't know, but I would say that he was much an evangelist, but he was not so great at being a pastor of the concept. His calling was to get the word out, but very little in the way of protecting the ideas and the quality behind the concept. And so everybody who attended these workshops of his might decide just to put this idea to work with their own mutations. And some people began using the concept in ways that he might not approve of or would even run counter to that. Would you tell us a bit about your experience? Because I know you've worked with many hundreds of clients. You've probably come across people who thought they had infinite banking policies, but maybe it turned out not so. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a couple things. I am not good at remembering exactly all the pages in the book and where it says in chapter 35, paragraph 2, or any of that stuff. But this book, is a game changer. I think every business owner, every person should read Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. Like, I believe it's one of those books that should be read, educated on, and because we're all in the finance game, right? Now, I do know, even today, that there's people who use his book and they're not IBC practitioners. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to get the designation, because I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, and I'm saying this and that, but I'm not a practitioner. Now, there are people out there that I know for sure have built their YouTube channels off of his book, but they aren't in the IBC world, right? And so for me, I felt it was a good thing to at least go upstream and say, all right, I want to learn about that. Mm-hmm. Now, what I think happened is Pamela saw this kind of thing happening.
This kind of thing, meaning the kind of divergence or really lack of oversight of what people were buying. They thought they were getting somebody who could build an infinite banking policy who was not necessarily trained or really believing in Nelson's book.
I see it now. People will use this book and they aren't part of the Infinite Banking Practitioner program, and they are also selling IULs. And they're like,
indexed universal life insurance.
Mm-hmm. So they're using that book and saying, well, he does this. This is how it works. And you'll see it on TikTok. You'll see it everywhere. And I would say Nelson Nash would disagree. What is happening now, Pamela then saw a way to educate. She created her book. Again, I don't want to start any kind of fights or anything like that. But what I think happened was Nelson was kind of like Martin Luther in the Protestant Reformation. He opened the doors to this idea, and then there became different sects. There's the Baptist and the Southern Baptist and the non-Baptist Baptist, different versions of Christianity. Same thing happened within life insurance. I mean, can you believe it? And there was different versions. And so Pamela said, oh, well, there's this. How do we then create a system? So we had Bank on Yourself. Now what's different, I believe, is Bank on Yourself isn't just a book. There's a training that goes alongside it, right? There's not just a video on YouTube that says, how do you pay off cars or whatever, all that stuff. But it's how do we have a training program and a organization that checks our work. That I think is the very big difference.
Huge difference.
That is Tim Austin, the co-owner with Bank on Yourself, checks our work and sees our persistency on our policies year over year over year. I think that fundamentally is a very big difference for me, and why I'm a Bank on Yourself authorized practitioner through that.
Yeah,
right.
It's a really great point. There's the big tent experience of going to a weekend seminar to be a part of a think tank, to brainstorm with people, to share ideas on what's working and not working, to recommit to Nelson's ideal from his book, and also to weed out a lot of the, again, I would say, he was a great evangelist, not a great pastor. Pamela and Nelson worked together in the late 90s, early 2000s, along with Tim, to create the Bank on Yourself training program. At first, it was called the Infinite Banking Training that Pamela put together with Nelson. And eventually, there was so much mud in the water from other people out there on the beginnings of the internet talking about this that she ended up setting aside the words infinite banking and created the IP, the certified trademark and registered trademark for Bank on Yourself. And not only did she create the IP, but she and Tim created the authorized training program for professionals who are certified and authorized by Bank on Yourself. And they really try to make it like the CFP of the insurance world in this little niche in the financial universe. I mean, it is kind of a quality control. Yep. There's 30 different levers we have to pull to build these policies properly. But anybody who learns the 30 levers, technically could build the policy correctly. But you don't know who you don't know. You don't know if you've got one of the good guys or the bad guy. There's 400,000 life insurance agents across the United States. not all of them have ever even heard of Nelson Nash. And a lot of our listeners to this podcast and yours probably know more about how to build these policies than most insurance agents in the United States. So this training program, as you said, gives us that authorized practitioner experience, and it also gives the buying public a sense of assurance that they know what they're getting when they buy a policy from Brandon Neely or Mark Willis or one of the Bank on Yourself professionals. They know what they're getting. With IBC, it might be good, especially if they are part of the think tank, a part of the practitioners program, but there's no one looking over their shoulder to make sure that you're getting what you think you're getting. And when you're getting a lifetime contract, you want to make sure that the advisor who built it knew what he was doing or she was doing.